Imagine dedicating your entire life, every personal desire, every private dream, to one monumental duty. Queen Elizabeth II did just that. From the moment fate placed the crown upon her head, her life ceased to be her own. Instead, it became an emblem of service, sacrifice, and a constant balancing act between tradition and the rapidly changing tides of history. To truly understand Elizabeth, we must go beyond the glittering crown, the ceremonial parades, and the carefully orchestrated speeches. We must see the woman who carried the weight of a nation, and indeed an entire Commonwealth, upon her shoulders, quietly, steadfastly, and with unwavering discipline. Elizabeth was not born to be queen. As the daughter of the Duke of York, her early childhood was defined by relative normalcy, a simple yet privileged life in the shadow of her uncle, King Edward VIII. But history has a way of rewriting destiny. Edward's abdication in 1936 for love of Wallis Simpson suddenly thrust Elizabeth's father onto the throne as King George VI. With that shift, Elizabeth's life changed forever. She was now heir presumptive, a position that demanded preparation for a role that would test every ounce of her resilience. The Second World War became her crucible. As bombs fell over London, the young princess trained as a mechanic and driver, determined to contribute in ways that went beyond symbolic appearances. For a royal, this was extraordinary, and it revealed the spirit of duty that would define her reign. Imagine being a young woman of 25, newly married, deeply in love, and enjoying a budding family life, only to be called to lead one of the greatest empires in history because your father died far too young. That was Elizabeth's reality in 1952. The moment she became queen, her personal desires had to be buried beneath the crown. Her marriage to Prince Philip, though a partnership built on devotion, often took second place to her responsibilities. And while many women of her generation might have prioritized motherhood, Elizabeth had to prioritize the throne. Her children grew up largely in the care of nannies and guardians, while she balanced motherhood with statecraft, an impossible tension that fueled decades of criticism and debate. Her reign began in a world reeling from war, divided by ideologies and shaken by the crumbling of empire. Countries once under British rule demanded independence, and Elizabeth faced the monumental task of guiding this transition with dignity while keeping the Commonwealth united. She did not cling to the past with desperation, but recognized that leadership in a new age required adaptation. This quiet flexibility, masked behind her reserved demeanor, was one of her greatest strengths. She modernized the monarchy in subtle but profound ways, opening Buckingham Palace to television cameras, engaging in unprecedented public walkabouts, and allowing the world to see the monarchy not as a distant relic, but as a living institution capable of evolving with the times. Yet what most people never see is the relentless personal cost of this duty. Elizabeth lived under constant scrutiny. Every word she spoke, every gesture, even the slightest expression was analyzed by millions. Imagine waking up each day knowing that the world expected you to embody perfection, stoicism, strength, grace, regardless of what turmoil you might feel inside. For decades, she maintained this mask of composure, never revealing too much, never faltering in public. This discipline became her armor, but it was also her burden. The Queen's influence often worked in ways that were invisible to the public eye. She was not a politician, yet every prime minister, from Winston Churchill to Liz Truss, found themselves shaped by her counsel. She never issued orders or demands. Instead, her power lay in her consistency, her presence, her subtle nudges that reminded leaders of continuity and the long-term view. Churchill once described her as wise beyond her years, and others would later echo similar sentiments. While prime ministers came and went, Elizabeth endured, becoming a constant in a world of upheaval. Her quiet diplomacy helped ease international tensions, often in ways that history books overlook. Consider her role as head of the Commonwealth. This was not merely symbolic. At a time when former colonies could have easily turned away from Britain, her personal charm, her willingness to listen, and her commitment to inclusivity held the group together. For nations across Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean, Elizabeth became a symbol not of imperial dominance, but of mutual respect and partnership. It is easy to underestimate the power of such symbolism, yet it fostered unity among diverse nations, ensuring that the Commonwealth did not collapse under the weight of its contradictions. But sacrifice defined her story as much as influence. Elizabeth's personal life was marked by loss after loss: her beloved father's early death, the tragic crash that killed Lord Mountbatten, the scandals and divorces of her children, the death of Princess Diana, and finally, the passing of her lifelong companion, Prince Philip. Each of these moments threatened to destabilize the monarchy, and yet she remained steadfast. Even in grief, she appeared before her people, composed and dignified, never allowing personal sorrow to eclipse her duty. The most striking example was during Diana's death in 1997. Criticized initially for her silence, Elizabeth listened to her people, adapted, and addressed the nation with heartfelt words. This balance between tradition and responsiveness kept her relevant and respected. Behind the crown was a woman of remarkable discipline. She woke early, attended daily red boxes filled with state documents, and met with her advisors without fail. Vacations were rare, and even in her private retreats at Balmoral or Sandringham, duty followed her. Yet she found solace in simple pleasures: her corgis, her horses, and the countryside. These small joys were the fragments of personal freedom she allowed herself. And perhaps it was this grounding in ordinary loves that enabled her to withstand extraordinary pressures. Elizabeth's reign spanned 70 years, longer than any monarch in British history. In that time, she became more than a sovereign. She became a symbol of resilience, a living reminder that leadership is not always about bold speeches or dramatic gestures. Sometimes, true leadership is quiet, consistent, and enduring. Think of the crises she weathered: the Suez debacle, the Cold War, the troubles in Northern Ireland, economic recessions, political scandals, Brexit, and even a global pandemic. Through it all, she stood as the one constant presence, a calm figure in a storm of chaos. Her sacrifices also resonate on a deeply human level. How many of us have dreams we set aside for the sake of others? How many of us face responsibilities that force us to prioritize duty over personal happiness? In Elizabeth's story, we see not just a monarch, but a mirror of our own struggles with sacrifice and resilience. She reminds us that greatness is not always found in personal glory, but in service to something larger than ourselves. Even in her later years, as her health declined, she never abandoned her post. Just 2 days before her passing, she fulfilled her constitutional duty of appointing a new Prime Minister. That final act encapsulates her life's theme: unwavering commitment to duty until the very end. When she died in 2022, the world mourned not just a queen, but a symbol of stability who had guided generations. Elizabeth's life teaches us that true power often lies in restraint. In a world that celebrates noise, she embodied quiet strength. In an age of fleeting attention, she represented enduring presence. And in a society obsessed with individualism, she dedicated her entire life to collective duty. Her story is not simply history, it is a lesson for all of us. Whatever challenges we face, whatever sacrifices are demanded of us, resilience and service can transform even the heaviest burdens into legacies of meaning. As we reflect on Elizabeth II's reign, we are reminded that greatness does not always shout. Sometimes it whispers, it endures, it sacrifices, and it inspires across generations. She may have worn a crown of jewels, but her true crown was invisible, the crown of responsibility, sacrifice, and unwavering resilience. And in carrying it with such grace for 70 years, she redefined what it means to lead, what it means to serve, and ultimately, what it means to live a life of purpose.